Today we're going to paint lightning in a bottle. Lightning is generally pretty easy and straightforward. However, it's not just about the jagged white line, it's also about the space around it that's really going to make it pop. This is a great beginner's video on how to paint lightning, and after you give it a couple tries, you'll only improve your skills and the look of your miniatures. So let's get started. Starting with an example of lightning, we can see how there is a gradient of lighting between the pure white crackle and the dark background. By changing this to a green, we can start to see which colors we want to work with today. These 4 points will show us our colors. First, we have the lightning itself. Second is the immediate energy surrounding the lightning, followed by the general aura, and finally the darker spaces. The importance of this picture is to understand that there is both lighting behind and in front of the lightning strike, which means we want to build up the lighting and over it. This creates a 3D effect onto our flat surface, successfully creating depth. Looking at our colors that we pulled, we can start to look for paints which we want to use for the process. I used a paint-on primer for the model, as well as gunmetal metallic and strong tone wash for the weapon itself. As for the lightning, we will build upward from angel green, greenskin green, jungle green, finally a white for the strike itself. Once we've built up to the lightning, we will build back down to angel green, as well as touch up any of the colors as needed. After the majority of the work, we will use a strong tone over the darkest parts of the area, and top it off with a gloss varnish. I'll be painting this Necron Tesla weapon. The rest of the weapon has already been based, so we can focus on our objective. This is a great weapon to show off the lightning and a bottle effect. I always like the idea of Tesla weapons constantly writhing with active electricity, rather than the magic being hidden under the weapon plates itself. So to start, we will apply our angel green onto the general areas, making sure to fill in between each panel as well. To make it easier, I'm filling in the corners before I finish off the larger surface. We will also be filling in the bottom side of the weapon, so we have 2 examples for this video. Every step in this process will take a few coats, so there will be a short amount of wait time in between. Now on to applying the second coat. And stage 1 is complete. Next, we will create a line for which direction we want our lightning to go. So I'm just tracing where I feel like I want my design to be. Taking our greenskin green, we start the process for our origin point of the lightning and down to whichever jagged path we want to take. Lightning has loads of character to it, so while you're painting to the endpoint, create secondary branches and forks along the road. There, the path of our first strike has been decided. Now we will do the same for the bottom. We're going to return to these areas once or twice to make sure the Greenskin green stays potent. And with that, we're going to call this layer good. Moving on to our jungle green, we're going to follow the same path we've created. We're getting much closer to where the lightning strike is taking place. This paint was fighting me with its consistency. However, when I went back over it later, with a few coats, there wasn't an issue. To help compensate with the sticky paint, I decided to dot it on instead. Sometimes it's about learning how to apply an unwieldy paint so you can get the results you want. I also wiped away any excess anytime the watered down paint got too wildly. After this coat dried, I went back over it again just to make sure that the jungle green was consistent. With all that finished, we can begin to apply our lightning strike. Following our line, use the white to create a jagged path from our beginning position all the way to the end of each part of the lightning. Though we are generally sticking to the line, if you go outside of it, it's no big deal, it just adds to the character. Now finalizing our second strike on the bottom. Simple enough. Keep your lightning strike path in mind because we're going to add a few coats of white that's actually going to go over and glob a little bit of the detail. This process is going to pay off later. Again, every strike is going to be different, so even if you don't fill it in this much, that's okay. It's to how you want your design to turn out. Just a few final touches on the white. And this is all set for us. Now we're going to start building downward with our colors. Going back to our jungle green, we're going to surround the white lightning. And again, because of how this paint was acting, I had to go back and add a couple of coats. But for now, it didn't bother me. If any of the green goes over the white, don't worry about that. We'll fill in the higher whites later. We actually want the green to affect the white a little bit, because later on we're going to push in the white line. There. Though this is generally pretty messy, you begin to see the layering take form. With that finished, we're starting on a second coat of the jungle green, and we're going to fill in a lot more of the space we worked on, both pushing back the white as well as pushing into those darker spaces. The more light green you add, the more it's going to force that white into that original crackle we were looking for. Along with pushing back on those negative spaces is going to create more of that energy effect that we desire. Now we're starting to use our Greenskin green. This is to blend in the difference between the jungle green and the darker spaces, as well as push in the lightning in any way we need to reform it. This should generally be a shorter process, but it's also where you can critique your work for the result that you want. All set. Here I'm coming back with the jungle green to fill in some details and push back the lightning a little bit more. And as I mentioned in the intro, that there's going to be a lot of back and forth with these colors depending on what outcome you want. We are all done with the Greenskin green. Now we're just going to use Angel Dark Green to blend in those darker spaces. I decided to play around and add in more white to the highest points to really make the lightning pop. I did this in the areas where either I wanted it to shine through more or every part where it forks. I also began to add much smaller crackles and forks along the lightning path. Some of them I decided to keep, and some later I decided to paint over. Again, we're going through the same process on the back. I decided to keep it simple rather than add more detail than necessary, so it'll really stand out on the model without being too chaotic. As I mentioned, there's a few parts that I wanted to push back on, so I went ahead and did that. Unfortunately, this was the only part of the video that came out blurry, so I quick clipped it to make sure you at least saw where I worked. Again, just pushing back the spaces I felt were necessary. Okay, and that is it for all the layers of green. Now we are adding our strong tone wash into the recesses, and this is really going to make the lightning panels stand out from the rest of the model. It's also going to help the look of lightning being contained within this weapon. We're really starting to see our final effect. Doing the same thing on the bottom. And anywhere where the wash gets on the lightning, go ahead and just wipe it off. Now we're going to add the strong wash to the darker points of the green. This is going to keep the darker areas a shade of green, but create more of a contrast with the lightning. And done. Finally, for our last step, we're going to add a very thick gloss varnish. For this, we're going to stick to the panels as best we can. Try and not get it into any of the recesses or dark points in between the panels. With any excess that might come up that's touching the metallics or the spaces in between the panels, we're going to clean that up later, but first we'll do the same thing to the bottom. We're going to go through the same process as we did on top, try and not hit the metallics or the parts between the panels. Again, keeping as much gloss on the brush as possible. All set. So as I mentioned, we're going to go back to the spaces where it overflowed and just wipe it away. If any of the gloss dried on the metallics or in between the panels, just go back with the strong wash, and apply it to the area. This is how it's looking while the gloss is drying. And there you have it, your lightning in a bottle. I love the look of this on the Tesla weapons. I think the best thing about this process is you can get as messy as you need and to be able to clean it up later while you're working on the energy casted over the lightning during the second half of the process. And the more you practice painting lightning, the better you get and the more defined your lines can become. Hopefully this video has given you some insight so you can continue to grow your skills. If you appreciated this video, go ahead and leave a like, and for more upcoming content, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Phantom out.